What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, it's the Game Week 11 preview. So I'm going to start off with the lineups from the Champions League for Liverpool and Arsenal and what it might mean from an FPL point of view. Talk about captaincy, go for a free hit draft and answer some of your questions as well. So let's get into it. So let's start with Arsenal's Champions League game from last night, in which, of course, they kept a clean sheet because that's just what they do. They won 3-0, one Saka penalty and a brace from Merino, who started as the number 9. And by the way, he's a 5.9 million midfielder in FPL, playing as number 9 for Arsenal. So quite interesting as a very short-term punt. The latest going around about Gyökeres is that he's going to be out until after the international break and that they're hopeful he'll be back for Spurs at home in game week 12. None of that is official, and we haven't heard from Arteta yet, but I am not expecting him to play against Sunderland away. And then maybe he's back for Spurs at home. So I've already had some questions about whether it's worth taking a punt on Merino. If you are 100% going to wildcard in game week 12, I would think about it. If you've got a spare Arsenal slot, he's only 5.9 million. His ownership will be ridiculously low, and he's going to start number 9. I don't see anyone else playing there this weekend. If you're wildcard 13, or you've used your wildcard, I'd be way more wary of that. Because you could bring him in this week, then have to sell him in 12. And yes, he's a very interesting differential. If you've got lots of spare transfers, you could consider it. But he's not a long-term move, in my opinion, unless Arteta says on Friday that Gyökeres is going to be out for a while. But even in that case, Havertz is another player that could be back at some point soon. All we get about Havertz really is that he's progressing. It seems to be, from the reports going around, they want all these players back after the break, but we don't have like official timelines or anything like that. So for me, Merino is way too short-term of a punt. But if you're wildcarding in 12, or maybe wildcard 13, you could consider him. Saka scored the penalty. We know he's first choice. Played the full match. I think as someone looking to potentially buy Saka this week, I was hoping that he'd only play a bit of the match. But as Luke pointed out to me, Luke who's been on the channel before, we used to like when players played a lot of minutes. So I get what he's saying, right? Saka, it's just good. He's always going to play until maybe Madueke is back. And then perhaps his minutes will come down a little bit. But we know he's first choice. We know he's first choice penalty taker. He looks like a good option to come in. Potential captaincy over the next 5 to 6 weeks as well. 2 players that didn't start. Calafiori at left back. Nketiah played instead. Calafiori does seem to be the defender from the back 4 that gets rested the most. But so far it hasn't happened in the Premier League. So I think if you've got him, looking good for this week. In terms of buying one, Gabriel is obviously the one. And I still think Timber's my second favourite. But Timber, Calafiori, you can't really go wrong. Eze also didn't start this game. It was a midfield of Nwaneri, Norgard and Rice. So if you've got Eze, you're definitely keeping him for Sunderland away. But I wouldn't buy him now because Odegaard's another player that could be back after the break. And if that happens, I think Eze's minutes will go down. So yeah, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel all started. Don't think there's any issues there. Timber did get subbed during the game. And yeah, Rice started again, as he always does. He's a good pick in FPL and the fixtures are good. So yeah, I think that's about it. I feel like there's something I'm missing. Merino up front, Calafiori, no Eze. No, I think that's about it. And Gyökeres probably out until after the break. So for Liverpool's game against Real Madrid last night, there was one change to the lineup from the team that played Aston Villa, and that was Gakpo dropping out and Wirtz played instead. And by all accounts, Liverpool played really well in this game. If you look at the expected goals for the match, it was about 2.5 for Liverpool and 0.45 for Real Madrid. So a good attacking performance and a good defensive one as well. Have they turned a corner? 2 wins in a row, 2 clean sheets in a row? Potentially. We'll have to wait and see when they play Man City away this week. But all of a sudden, if you were against Liverpool players, defensively or from an attacking point of view, I bet those fixtures from game week 12 onwards look a lot better now than they did before they played Villa and Real Madrid. Just a reminder, Forest at home in game week 12, followed by West Ham away, Sunderland at home, Leeds away, Brighton at home, Spurs away, Wolves at home. Excellent fixture run. The back 4, Bradley right back, Robertson left back. It looks like Kirkes is kind of out of favour right now. Centre backs are Konate and Van Dijk. I think if you want to buy a defender, it's still got to be Van Dijk. Like, Conor Bradley is good value, but I just don't think he can play all these matches. I think we will see some games where Frimpong plays if he's fit. Otherwise, Szoboszlai might go to right back when needed. I just think Conor Bradley, like we've seen before, he doesn't tend to play 90 minutes weekend, midweek weekend for very long. Robertson, obviously in right now, but we know Kirkes is a threat. And Konate is fine. He will pick up some defensive contributions, but he's not that much cheaper than Van Dijk. And Van Dijk's got the bigger goal threat. So I think if you're going to buy a defender, you probably should just opt to go for Van Dijk, who will play all these matches. No questions about that. The midfield 3 was Szoboszlai, Gravenberch, McAllister. Szoboszlai is 6.5 million right now, may go up in price this week. Is he a genuine option? I think potentially. Like, he keeps playing 90 minutes every single game. And as I mentioned with Saka, we like players that play all the minutes, and he is one. Liverpool are going to get clean sheets over this run, so a bit like with Declan Rice, you're going to get the extra point for that. If he does play right back, it's probably good for defensive contributions. And if he does play in midfield, it's better for attacking returns as well. Is he worth 6.5 million? The only case I can really make is the fixtures are amazing, and you've got no African Cup of Nations or anything to worry about. So if you go for like a player like Njai or Sarr or someone like that, you know you're going to have to sell them later on. With Szoboszlai, you could put him in game week 12 and just leave him for this entire run. But as a few people have pointed out to me, I think he was even cheaper last year, and at no point did we really consider him. Now, does that mean we should not consider him this year? Not necessarily. There's just, I'm almost on board with him as a pick, but not quite there yet. And maybe I'll come back to it in game week 12. But I think there's worse punch you can make right now. There's every chance he just continues to play all these matches. And you maybe can't say that about someone like Gakpo. I mean, interestingly, I tweeted when this team sheet came out and I said, pick your narrative. Gakpo's been rested or his minutes just aren't secure. And as a few people pointed out to me, you don't tend to get rested for Real Madrid. So I guess the narrative has to be that Gakpo's minutes aren't fully there. I mean, Liverpool have played really well the last two games. Look, Villa could have scored, right? I get it. It wasn't a perfect performance. But maybe they have turned a corner here. They've got this set up with Robertson at left back, Bradley at right back. And to get Wirtz in the team, maybe Gakpo's the one that will have to miss out sometimes. Like, game week 13, 14, 15 is weekend, midweek, weekend. Gakpo's not, I don't think he's going to start all three of them. And I think if you want to take the punt on him because the fixtures are so good, I fully get that. And I wouldn't even argue against it. But don't do it thinking he's going to play all the matches. If you're, I've said this so many times before, if you're one of those FPL managers that as soon as Gakpo gets hooked early or gets benched and you're going to get really frustrated, just do not buy him. Right? He's not Bruno Fernandes. He's not Mo Salah. He's not Virgil van Dijk. He's not going to start every single game. Simple as that. And last night's match showed that. Wirtz comes in instead. And we know Wirtz has not had a great start to his Liverpool career and been terrible for FPL, but he's too good just to keep missing out. And that midfield three, McAllister, Gravenberch, Szoboszlai, just seems to provide a bit of balance. So it doesn't seem like Wirtz is necessarily going to play in that kind of number 10 role necessarily a lot. Ekitike is an option if Isak's out for a while, but we don't have a time frame. And Salah's still good, of course, but the money, for me, it's just too much. But I'll tell you now, honestly, Salah might be the biggest differential from game week 12 onwards. The biggest differential we might have all season. Like, relative to what we know he can deliver and relative to what his ownership usually is. Like, imagine in pre-season me telling you Liverpool are going to play Forest at home, West Ham away, Sunderland at home, Leeds away, and people aren't going to own Salah. You would have called me crazy, right? Huge differential. Maybe you could put Haaland and Salah in the same team. I think for a lot of people, it's just too many moves to do that. If you've got a wild card, you could think about it. Or you could do a little bit of hokey-cokey. So take Haaland out, free hit him back in, keep Salah for Sunderland, and then get Haaland back. But obviously that's risky because we know how good Haaland is and you're going to lose team value as well. And Haaland's definitely going to be in our team 16, 17 onwards because Salah will be at African Cup of Nations. So we'll have money to spend, so therefore he'll come back. So you will lose team value. It's not like people are going to ditch Haaland, he's going to drop and they're not going to buy him back. That's not what's going to happen. So I think if you're looking at Liverpool players, Van Dijk definitely, Ekitike only if you know that Isak's out for a while. Szoboszlai definitely an option at 6.5. And although I just still don't know if I could buy him instead of like Sarr or someone like that, but we'll come to that in game week 12. Gakpo, too risky for me, but I don't hate it if you want to go there. And Salah if you want to go big differential. So captaincy for game week 11 is a really interesting discussion because on the one hand, I feel like there's an obvious pick this week, and that is Haaland. He's playing at home. How can we back against him? This is a guy that's still averaging over 1 XG per 90 minutes. And that's not including penalties. Imagine when he starts getting them, how ridiculous the scoring rate will be, as long as he scores the penalties, of course. But on the other hand, I feel like there's not really a standout because at the end of the day, Haaland is still playing Liverpool. And I know they haven't defended that well. You don't need to tell me I've owned Van Dijk since game week 4. But we have to acknowledge they've been a bit better in the last couple of games. And at the start of the season, if you're ever thinking about matches to go against Haaland, it's probably an away game where the team is not a pushover, like Newcastle away or something like that. Or it's a home game against Arsenal or a home game against Liverpool. Like, it still means something, even if Liverpool haven't been at their absolute best. And actually, you look at the expected goals conceded this season, it's around 1.15 for Liverpool. It's not as bad as maybe the performances have looked. So, I don't know. I think if you want to just default to Haaland, that's fine. That's probably what I'm going to do. Like, backing Haaland at home is never a bad idea. But if you want to go against him, I don't hate it this week. The problem is, I'm not sure there's like an obvious standout who's much better. Like, Saka against Sunderland sounds pretty nice. And one thing to mention, with Gyökeres out, there's no debate about penalties. And for what it's worth, I'm not trying to argue that Gyökeres is first choice penalty taker or anything like that. We know it's Saka, but there has been discussion pretty much every time Arsenal have had a penalty between the two. But with Gyökeres out, Saka takes. But Sunderland have also defended quite well this season. Like 1.14 expected goals conceded. They've only conceded 8 goals. They're 4th in the table. So it's not necessarily as easy as we thought it might be in pre-season. But they haven't played Arsenal yet. And that could be a difficult match for them. So I think Saka is a nice alternative. He's definitely going to start the game. The minutes should be pretty good. Outside of that, it gets tricky. Like, Spurs didn't play very well against Chelsea. Could Man United play well against them? Potentially. But does anyone really want to captain Bruno or Mbeumo against Spurs away rather than Haaland at home to Liverpool? I'm not so sure. And then when you start looking at the other matches, the key ones that stand out are like Burnley at home. It's West Ham. Like, if you've got Jarrod Bowen, I'd absolutely keep him. I'm not sure I'd go as far as captaining him. Like, he's not on penalties or anything like that. Chelsea versus Wolves is really nice. But I don't think we can go from João Pedro doesn't shoot, you've probably got to sell him if you've got a spare transfer to let's captain him against Wolves. Right? I don't see that at all. Especially with the lap back now as well. Because that could take minutes off of João Pedro. Obviously, they can play together, right? But it could reduce his minutes overall. Or someone like Enzo Fernandes. I mean, Chelsea are playing in the Champions League tonight. Let's see how many minutes players like Enzo and João Pedro get. But, I mean, Enzo against Wolves, it doesn't scream captaincy to me personally. And then what else are we even looking at, really? Like Mateta against Brighton. It's not that interesting. So, for me, it's Haaland or it's Saka. I think are probably the main two that I'd be looking at. Maybe a Man United player against Spurs. If it was at home, I'd be a bit more interested in that. But I just think we shouldn't look at Spurs and say they were really bad against Chelsea. And that Spurs have maybe not been great over the course of the season, right? But we shouldn't look at that game and say, well, now Man United are going to smash them. Because I said this to someone the other day. If Spurs are now the crisis club and Man United are playing them, there's only one outcome. Man United will come out of that game as the crisis club instead. So I think it's Haaland or Saka. I might buy Saka this week. I'm not convinced I will switch the armband, but it will be tempting because he'll be more differential. Most people are just going to go Haaland, but also there's good reason for that. So Haaland or Saka for me. If you want to take a punt on a player playing Burnley at home or Wolves at home, I really don't hate it. If you're going to do it in a match where Haaland's playing Liverpool, but it is at home. And you cannot be shocked if he walks away with a 9-13 pointer. So let's talk about a free hit draft for Game Week 11. I've gone triple Chelsea and triple Arsenal, which I think will be fairly standard for anyone that plays the chip this week. Then I've gone for double West Ham, which we'll come on to in a minute. And then the other 3 picks are Mateta, Haaland and Bruno Fernandes. Now we'll start with midfield. I think there's a lot of options in midfield this week, but not a lot of standout picks. So I actually struggled with 2 of the options. So Saka and Enzo Fernandes were fairly straightforward. Saka's the best Arsenal midfield pick. Going to play against Sunderland on penalties. Enzo also on penalties. Great fixture against Wolves at home. I know Caicedo is the best FPL pick right now, but I still prefer Enzo Fernandes. So that's why I've gone with him. So Saka and Enzo were easy. Paquetá and Bruno Fernandes, less so. Paquetá's really in because there's not another midfielder that I would choose from West Ham. You could look at Somerville, I guess, as a potential punt, but I prefer Paquetá on penalties. And then Bruno Fernandes, you know he's going to start. Spurs struggled the last game. Hopefully that happens again. And he's on penalties. But you could easily swap those 2 players to someone else. I just don't know if any of them stand out as miles better. So it's almost like take your pick. If you're looking at Bruno and Paquetá thinking there's 2 other midfielders I definitely have instead, just put them in. I'm definitely not locked in on those 2 having to be in this draft. Mbeumo against Spurs you could look at. Njai if he's past fit against Fulham. I think for Arsenal, if you're happy going against double defence or against Saka, you could pick Merino. Huge differential this week. I would definitely look at that as well. Chelsea, for me, it's Enzo. I mean, you could put Caicedo in, I guess, but for me, it's Enzo. Rodgers against Bournemouth. Semenyo against Villa away are okay. But I don't know. Maybe this is a week where you go against Semenyo. If you've already got him in your normal team, maybe you go against him this week and have him back for the good fixtures from 12 onwards. Utara against Newcastle at home, Gordon against Brentford away, Sarr against Brighton at home, Gibbs White against Leeds at home. They're all okay options, but I've gone with I love penalties, so I've gone for Bruno and Paquetá. But if you could fit Marino in, I really like that. Defensively, I've gone for double Arsenal, double Chelsea. So Sanchez and Reece James. Reece James, I don't necessarily see as a long-term pick, but on free hit, I'd definitely go for him. He's playing a lot of minutes right now, especially if he gets rested in the Champions League. And then Gabriel and Calafiori. Gabriel, obvious reasons I don't need to go into. Calafiori got a rest in the Champions League. He'll start this game. And also, if I'm picturing an Arsenal defender popping up with a goal in the box from open play, it's definitely Calafiori right now. And then up front, Haaland's obvious. Bowen just because he's playing Burnley at home. And Mateta is just a good pick. It's not a super easy fixture against Brighton, but he'll start. The minutes will be good, and he's on penalties. The one player, again, people will definitely have different opinions about the midfield. That's absolutely fine. I'm absolutely not locked in on Bruno and Paquetá. The one other player people will mention, I think, is João Pedro. Wolves at home, good pick. Lots of people have sold him recently. It's just a combination thing, right? So if I was going to put João Pedro in, it would probably be instead of Mateta, which is fine, by the way. I think if you want to go João Pedro, that's absolutely okay. It wouldn't be for Bowen because I like him this week, and it couldn't be for Haaland. So then I'd have to change one of the other Chelsea players. It probably wouldn't be Enzo, just because I've already struggled with midfield. So it'd be James and Sanchez. It definitely wouldn't be Reece James. What a fun punt that is on free hits. It'd be the goalkeeper. So instead of Sanchez, I'd probably go Areola for West Ham. So Areola and João Pedro or Sanchez and Mateta, I definitely prefer Sanchez and Mateta. Chelsea defence much better than West Ham. And at least in Mateta, you've got the penalty taker. And João Pedro's minutes maybe going to be reduced a little bit now Delap is back. Not in a major way, by the way. You don't need to panic about him if you got him. But on a free hit, it's those little things you maybe think about. So I basically like 9 out of the 11 players I've picked. Paquetá and Bruno, open for discussion. So let's get into some of your questions. Which week is better to wildcard, game week 12 or game week 13? It's not really a case of which one's better. It's about how your team is set up right now and what your preferences are in terms of which teams you want to target later on. So the two main teams with fixture swings coming up are game week 12 Liverpool and game week 13 Man City. Now, I will hazard a guess that most people will not actually go for a lot of Man City players whenever they wildcard soon because they'll be too worried about the minutes. Haaland's great. Everyone else, it's kind of hard to know, right? Foden might be great. He keeps playing. Long term, are we confident that will be the case? It's harder to know. So I think Liverpool are one of the key teams to look to target game week 12, but it also depends on which players you've currently got in your team. So let's say you've got Enzo, Caicedo and a Chelsea defender. Well, they've got Wolves at home in 11 and Burnley away in 12. So you're not likely to want to wildcard them out in game week 12, but if you do wildcard, you're not going to want to keep them longer term. So for people that have got like a lot of Arsenal, which most people will have a triple up, they've got a good fixture in game week 12. If you've got 2 or 3 Chelsea, they've also got a good fixture in game week 12. And generally, most of the players that you're carrying right now are probably okay in game week 12. Like Senesi and Semenyo have got West Ham at home that week. If you've got Man United players, they've got Everton at home. So for a lot of people, unless you're desperate to pick up 2 or 3 Liverpool in game week 12, you can actually probably just push it till game week 13. And a key reason for game week 13 is Man City have a fixture swing that week, and also Arsenal play Chelsea. Now, for what it's worth, even though Arsenal are playing Chelsea, if you were to wildcard in game week 13, you'd probably go for 3 Arsenal because they're such good long-term picks, but it's the Chelsea players that you would drop. So there's not really a better option. My advice would be, if you can get through game week 11 without making a major decision, just come back after the break and see if your team needs it. Because it might be that you desperately want 2 or 3 Liverpool players and you've got a few injuries to deal with. Or if your team looks great, which I think for most people it will, you can put it off until game week 13. Maybe it's just my team, or maybe people just haven't looked at it. But I'm telling you now, most people's teams are going to look really good for 12, and that same team will look really good for game week 14 as well. So I think for most people with a wild card left, it's probably 13, unless you're desperate for Liverpool players in 12, which, by the way, is fine. If you want to take a punt on Liverpool players with those fixtures, quite like it. So can you explain the African Cup of Nations transfers in more detail? Now, I thought of a few different ways to illustrate this. I started making graphics and boxes and numbers and stuff like that. But in the end, I just bullet pointed it. I think that's the easiest way to explain. The headline that you need to know is in game week 16, everybody that is playing FPL will be topped up to 5 free transfers. So when you get to game week 16, you will have 5 free transfers. That's all you really need to know. No matter how many transfers you spend in game week 15, no matter how many transfers you carry forward to game week 16, you will have 5 in game week 16. Okay? So that means you should use all your free transfers by game week 15. So for example, the plans that I've made for my own team often have me arriving at game week 15 with 3 free transfers. I will use them all in game week 15 because I know in game week 16 I'm going to get 5. The transfers you get in game week 16 do not all have to be used that week. They just work like any other transfers that you saved up. So if you get to when you get to game week 16 and you've got the 5 free transfers that you will be given and you only use 1 in game week 16, you'll then have 5 in game week 17 because the other 4 will carry over. And they do not need to be used on African players only. You can use them on whoever you want. So that's the headline. Game week 16, you'll have 5 transfers to do with as you wish. If you use all of them straight away, then you'll have 1 in game week 17. If you use 2 of them in game week 16, then you'll carry the other 3 over. You'll have 4 in game week 17. Hopefully that makes sense. I'm not really sure how else I can explain it, to be honest. Also, if you were to wildcard or free hit in game week 16, those transfers will carry through to game week 17. So you get to game week 16, you got 5 free transfers, you activate the free hit. In game week 17, you'll still have 5 free transfers. I don't know how else to explain it. When you get to game week 16, you'll have 5 transfers, no matter how many you carry through. So just one other thing, I guess. If you get to game week 15 and you've got 2 free transfers that you take forward to game week 16, you won't have 7 in game week 16. Everybody will have 5. That's the only thing you need to remember. Everybody in game week 16 will have 5 free transfers. I've said that like a million times now. I cannot explain it any other way. 5 free transfers in 16. You can carry them through if you decide to use a chip that week. And if you only use 1, you'll still have 5 the next week. If you use 2, you have 4 the next week, etc. If you've got any other questions about that, leave them in the comments below. I don't think there's really anything else to it. There's not that much detail about it, really. So I kind of touched on this in yesterday's transfer tips video, but let's just go through it again. Who's the better pick, Bruno Fernandes or Bryan Mbeumo? There's only a 0.5 million difference in price now. Fernandes has dropped to 8.9, Mbeumo's gone up to 8.4. From open play, Mbeumo is better. I don't think many people would argue with that. Mbeumo's underlying numbers, 0.31 expected goals per 90, 0.27 expected assists. So over the next 6 weeks, and I use 6 weeks specifically because after that Mbeumo will go to African Cup of Nations, I would expect Mbeumo to get more attacking returns from open play. Fernandes is of course capable of being the one that gets more, but the numbers suggest it's going to be Mbeumo. So we can all agree on that. The slight advantages Bruno has over Mbeumo is probably minutes. For what it's worth, I think Mbeumo starts every single game, and in pretty much all those games, he'll probably play 90 minutes. But if one of them's going to get subbed early, it's probably more likely to be Mbeumo than Fernandes. It's not impossible it's the other way around, but it's more likely to be Mbeumo. So Fernandes, ever so slight better minutes. But honestly, I wouldn't even think about that as part of your decision because both minutes are really good. Fernandes is on penalties. I mean, he has missed 2. There is a chance he'll lose them, but I don't think he will. And he's got defensive contributions. Now, when you mention that, the counter argument is always, I'm not paying 8.9 million for defensive contributions. But you're not paying it just for that. It's just an addition that Fernandes has. Like, Mbeumo is better from open play, but it's not like Fernandes has no threat whatsoever. His numbers actually haven't been that bad, considering he's playing central midfield. So he's got some open play threat, he's on penalties, and defensive contributions. Now, you can throw away the defensive contribution argument as only 2 points, but it's only 1 less than assist. And he's picked it up, let me just double check, a few times. There have been a few games where he's got to 11, which has been super annoying, but he's got it in 1, 2, 3 games already in the first 10 where he's picked up an additional 2 points, which is 6 points, which is basically another 2 assists. So don't completely write it off. So in my opinion, because it's only a 0.5 million difference, I'd probably go Fernandes. Because when you get to game week 17, you don't have to worry about Mbeumo going to African Cup of Nations. Now, we've just spoken about the extra transfers we're going to get. It's not going to be an issue to transfer Mbeumo out. You will have the spare moves. But you need to be 100% confident he's not miles better, but much better than Bruno Fernandes. If you think they're quite close, why not get the guy you're not going to have to transfer out? Because it's all well and good saying, we'll get to 17, we'll have loads of transfers, I'll just get rid of him. But you might have lots of other issues to deal with at that point. There might be other players you want to target. And actually, Man United midfielders, not bad from 17. Villa away, Newcastle at home, Wolves at home, Leeds away, Burnley away. Like for a player that's going to play all those games over Christmas. So it's a close call, right? And if you want to go in Mbeumo, I'm not going to argue against it. I don't think Fernandes is essential. I don't think you have to bring him in, etc., etc. But I'm pretty sure if I had the money, I would just buy Bruno and hope that he can somewhat keep up with the open play stuff. Bearing in mind he's hit the woodwork 3 times already this season, and that the penalties will help, and he'll keep chipping in with the odd defensive contribution as well. Like Mbeumo has scored more points, obviously. We can all see that on the FPL page. Will that continue? Let's wait and see. I think it'll be closer than people think. So who's the best midfielder under 5.4 million? Anderson, Xhaka or Garner? If I was picking between these 3, I'd go for Elliot Anderson. Now, he is the most expensive. He's 5.3, Xhaka is 5.1, Garner is 5. But if you feel like you're going to have to use this player a little bit over the next few weeks, and you've got 5.3 million to spend, which the question implies you do, I would buy Anderson. If you look at the defensive contributions per start, Garner is 11.4, Xhaka is 11.8, and Anderson is 12.7. And you need to hit 12 as a midfielder to get the additional 2 points. So Garner and Xhaka are going to do it quite a lot, but not as much as Anderson. And part of the reason to buy a player like this is because of the defensive contributions. And Anderson, I know there was a lot of hype about him in pre-season. That kind of died off a bit. He has hit it quite often. You know, game week 10, game week 8. I believe he hit it in game week 6, 5, 4. And he got an assist in game week 1. So he has hit 12 plus defensive contributions quite a lot. Now, it became a bit of a meme at the start of the season because he kept hitting 11, which is obviously super frustrating. But he's got close so many times. He hasn't had a match where he's got less than 10 so far. And he's hit it so often. So not only is he the best for defensive contributions per start of these 3 players, he's also got the best attacking threat. Now, we're not talking huge numbers, right? He's not like a Minte or a Saka or someone like that. But he's 0.21 expected goal involvement per 90. Xhaka is 0.15 and Garner is 0.2. So Anderson, best attacking threat of the 3, best defensive contributions per start. He's surely the obvious one to go to. You know, there's the penalties at Sunderland. Like I've seen a few people speculate that maybe Xhaka will take them. I don't know how true that is or how possible that is. If it was the case that Xhaka was on penalties, then he would obviously be the one. But I'm not sure we have enough evidence to say that that will be the case. So I would just get Anderson. And by the way, people are going to laugh about that because of how much we talked about him in pre-season. But if you look at those numbers, so 0.21 expected goal involvement per 90, 12.7 defensive contributions per start. You compare that to Caicedo, he's 13.22 defensive contributions per start. So he is slightly better for DEFCONs, but his attacking threat is less. His expected goal involvement is 0.15. This is the point I was trying to make with Caicedo the other day. Everyone's super hyped about him, but it's because of the attacking returns. And the numbers do not suggest that will continue. Elliot Anderson's numbers are slightly better. He's got 1 assist all season. So I think if you want a player that's fully focused on DEFCONs, you probably just buy Elliot Anderson. If we look at the fixtures coming up, which doesn't matter all that much, but they're not actually that bad either. Bearing in mind he's got minimum of 10 in every game so far anyway. Leeds at home, Liverpool away, Brighton at home, Wolves away, Everton away, Spurs at home. The one thing Anderson's not going to get as much as someone like Caicedo is clean sheets, because Chelsea will keep more than Nottingham Forest, but also you pay a 0.7 million premium for that. So I think at this price, I would probably go Anderson. If you've enjoyed that video and you've liked the fact I've once again talked about Caicedo, make sure to give it a like and hit that subscribe button. I'll be back tomorrow for team selection. See you then.